On the course page, there is this source code link which should lead to the page with the repository of this course. But currently there is no place to store this link. So I'm going to modify migration, which creates courses table, and right here we're going to add another column which will be of string type with the name repository URL. And this column is going to be used to store the link to the repository. Right away we're going to modify the course factory by adding this new attribute right here, repository URL. I'm going to specify the URL to one of my course repositories right here. And since we have added new attribute to the course resource, we also have to add this attribute in all the elements of this array with random data for courses. So I'm going to quickly go over all elements within this array and add repository URL field into each element. As always, whenever we modify one of our migrations, we have to regenerate database structure by running migrate fresh. And if we like to generate random data into tables in a database, we also specify seed flag to run all the seeders in a project. And now let's make sure that repository URL column has been added into courses table. There you go. We see the new column with repository URLs. So now I'm going to bind this repository URL to the appropriate link on the course page. Let's switch over to the info.blade.php component. That's the component which contains source code link. So right here I'm going to reference repository URL. And that's about it. Now after clicking on the source code link, we are about to be redirected to the repository page. As we can see, it works. There is also one more link on the lesson page, which is pretty similar. This source code link is supposed to redirect us to the particular commit of the lesson. So we also have to add another column to the lessons table to store this link. I'm going to modify lessons migration, but in addition to the column which is going to store a link to a particular commit, we also have to have the column to store URL of the video, because currently we do not store video URLs. So I'm going to add two columns of string type, first of which will be URL to store the video lesson URL, and another one will be commit URL to store the link to a particular commit of the lesson. Alright, before going further, let's also modify lesson factory by adding two new fields such as URL and commit URL with some random values, so that anytime we're going to run lesson factory, we get these two columns filled. And since we have the array with random data for lessons table inside lesson seeder class, I'm going to go over all these elements and add two new attributes, URL and commit URL, just like we have done for the course seeder. And now once again, let's rerun all the migrations by executing migrate fresh with a seed flag and make sure that those two columns have been added to lessons table. In here we're seeing URL as well as commit URL columns. So it's time to actually attach those links to the appropriate elements on the site. Let's start with a player. I'm going to open up player.blade.php and assign appropriate URL of the video from the URL column to the source attribute like this. And now to the source code link. It is located inside show.blade.php template, the template responsible for showing the lesson page. Right here I'm going to reference commit URL instead. Now let's make sure that all this works properly. And whenever I'm going to open up any lesson from this course, we'll see that appropriate video has been loaded into the iframe, because we are seeing that the title actually matches the title of the current lesson. And same goes with the source code link, because after clicking on this link, we're seeing that the new browser tab is opened with the page of that particular commit. And this is it for this lesson. Let's continue development in the next one.